So welcome to another unboxing video from theplayersaid.com. My name's Alexander, and today we are taking a look at Enemy Action Kharkov from Compass Games. So this is a 1 to 2 player war game designed by John Butterfield. This is a Hex Encounter East Front World War II game, and this is Enemy Action Volume 2. The original first one in the series was Enemy Action Ardennes. I actually have that on my shelf. It's just I haven't had the time or space to play it yet, but I will get to that. I swear on my life. We will do that. But that was released a number of years ago, and people were asking, "Oh, it was so good. When are we ever going to get a new one?" And Kharkov was in development for a long time, but finally it is here. So very grateful that that series is continuing, because it adds. It's a really popular game. The original was. And it was a very dedicated solo Hex Encounter war game. And I think there are lots of people out there clamoring for this, so I'm glad to see that. I haven't played it, I don't know what it's like, I presume that it's very good. John Butterfield is an excellent designer, one of my favorites. But I'm just glad that, the wants of the people could be fulfilled, because I had a lot of people asking us about this. So, Enemy Action Kharkov. Massive 4-inch box. This is very heavy and it's just chock full of stuff. There's a number of maps, a number of decks of cards, and a lot of counters. So let us just dive on in, because there is a lot to unpack here. So, you do get a bag of bags, which we appreciate very much. So we got some of our decks of cards. We have the German enemy command and the Soviet player command. These will dictate the actions of the AI when you're playing either side solitaire. That's right, you can play either side solitaire, which we really appreciate. And then we have some setup cards, which we've got a couple games that have unique setups. So you'll do your setups, and then you've got some extra random bits, so that it's not always the same, potentially. Some action and other command cards in here as well. We'll fish out all of these later. So the first thing we have in the box is our little corrections and errata, and there's a few, and that's not a surprise because this game has a lot of paper in it. So we will read through those. I'm reading the rules. So we have a number of play aids here. Oh yes, I hope you already saw those, and that looks very, very appealing. So we have the Enemy Action Kharkov German solo charts. So here are the German solo charts and the rules summaries. P.S. That might look like a lot of rules, and the reality is yes it is, because this is a deep and a rich game. This is not some introductory level, little easy to learn war game. This is a war game with meat on the bones. And we also have the solo Soviet bot as well. So these are all the rules that are going to be used if you're doing the Soviet solo option as well. So these are kind of not identical, but they're the mirror of each other. This is the German solo stuff, this is the Soviet solo stuff. And that is not an insignificant amount to take care of, but that's what you're getting yourself into. So what I was very excited for in this game is these counters are thick grey core counters that are all pre-rounded. My Enemy Action Ardennes, that is not the case. They were on white core, and I had to punch and clip all the corners of those. So I'm very grateful to not have to do that again. But these are, and on top of that, I believe these are much bigger looking counters. I think they just look bigger. I could be wrong about that, but they do. They look nicer. So here we got some Soviet units up here, and you can see it's kind of a very kind of a common tradition is having things like infantry units and cavalry units with a NATO symbol, then armor units with a silhouette of a tank, just to help differentiate, so you can see those from kind of from a distance, easy to kind of identify. A lot of T-34s going on. Is this and then these are little small T-26. I'm not sure about them, but yeah, lots of Russian tanks going on. Then we have some German armor down here. We've got some Panzer IVs, some German infantry units. Again, most of these units are dual-sided. Some of them are not. Some of them are single-sided. You can tell because there's nothing on the back of them. Those will be one-step units. A couple of, I guess, Soviet forward support markers, little admin counters. Here's the... Okay, this is awesome. And here's the rest of the German tanks. Now, Kharkov, if you don't know, was one of the largest tank-on-tank battles, volumetrically speaking, in the world ever, but also in World War II. I don't know if it totally takes the bacon, but I'm pretty sure it's one of the biggest, if not the biggest. So, you know, debate me all you want on that. I've qualified it. This is just an ungodly amount of Panzer IVs going on here, mostly. So the German units, in summary, if you haven't seen, are like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 infantry units, and everything, oh, there's a few more here, but like everything else is tanks, like a 2-to-1 ratio of tanks to infantry. That's what you're getting yourself into in this one. And there's a lot of Russian tanks as well. So this will be a very brutal and bloody affair, I am presuming. We have a lot of different markers here that are, I don't exactly know how they work. Again, not played this. We're going to punch some of these. Those punch very easily and have absolutely zero nubs on them. So that's a great boon to see. But the rest of these, we have a lot of Soviet garrison markers, a lot of German garrison markers, and what I presume are entrenchments, fortification styles that are dual-sided. And then we haven't seen these sides. Let's see, more of the same. And these are two different colors. I presume this is for Soviet units, this is for German units, depending on which side of the solo that you're playing against. But I'm not 100% sure about that. And then we have some activated markers for each formation that has activated. As you can see, this formation here has the light blue marker. That is the 3rd T, 3T, I'm not quite sure the unit designation of that one. But 4 sheets of counters, but the reality is this would be at least only 3 in a normal hexacounter war game because of the spacing and everything like that, because they're pre-rounded. So very, very nice counters. Very, very excited for that. Okay, I'm just gonna... There's a single D10 in here. I presume that's the only dice that the game uses. We have a Soviet and German command card display. So you're going to have your available supplemental cards, cards entering play, supplemental discards, primary discards, and your draw pile. And it looks like the cards are going to move depending on what's done with them. And then on the backs of these, we have identical play aids with terrain effects charts on them. Oh, not identical. The terrain effects chart's identical, but down here we've got Soviet strategic movement, which is very different from German strategic movements and map edge movement and things like that. And then we have our... Okay, so Soviet solo rules. So if you want to play the Soviet solo rules, this is what you're going to play as. And you're going to use this book. And so of all the games out there that claim to be 3 games in one, this is one that is much more likely to be that. We do have a 2-player rulebook, and we have a German solo rulebook. So the Soviet solo rulebook weighs in at a grand total up to the victory conditions of like 42 pages. The German one is a lot bigger. It's not a lot bigger. It is. It is like 48. Where's the victory conditions? That's where we'll end it again. 46 pages. It feels a lot bigger because there's extra pages at the back of the German one that have some examples and bits and pieces like that. But full color, lots of examples. All these big grey boxes are detailed examples, because if it's a solo game, you don't really have someone to bounce ideas off of, to like figure it out. They go into great detail about this. So there's 2 solo rulebooks, and then there's the 2-player rulebook, because you can play this as a straight 2-player rulebook, a 2-player game, and I have heard that it is very good as a 2-player game as well. So, you know, you can buy this as, 2 solo games in one, but you can also just play this as a 2-player war game. You can do that. but the two-player rulebook, because it doesn't have to like dictate the movements and commands of all of these AIs, doesn't have to be prescribed. The two-player rulebook is that 25 pages of rules. So it's as a two-player rulebook, much easier to learn, frankly, because you only got to learn half a game, so to speak, and the other player's got to learn the other half. This is our two-player play aid, single bifold. Is there only one of those? That is a shame. You'd love to have a second one, but there is just the one bifold play aid if you're playing the two-player rules. And then we have the 3 maps, one for each of the different game modes. And these are paper maps, as you can tell. All right. So this is all right, what are we looking at here? This is the 2-player map. Good. Glad I could get myself out of the way. We have a game turn calendar, victory point track over here, terrain effects chart, and then some holding boxes for your reserve and eliminated units on the side. But other than that, these are very big hexes. I don't know if it's true, actually, but I feel like these are bigger than Enemy Action Ardennes because the pieces might be a little bit bigger, but this is a very clean and crisp map. It is very easy to see what is what and how things are delineated, and I appreciate the white background, not just because they're like, oh, it's Russia and it's snowy, but like, I like kind of clean and plain backgrounds because it helps the units to kind of show up a bit better onto the map. Sometimes you get into those West Front games and it's like everything's green and the US are green units and you're like, what are we doing? So that's map number 1, and let me just make sure it is single-sided. Then we have map number 2. So this is a very clean, very standard wargame map. That's what you might expect from kind of any old wargame. But here we have the Soviet. So this is the German solo map. So this is you playing as the Germans, I believe. And so you're going... Now, as you can tell, this map's a lot busier. There is a lot of iconography and it's got all these different arrows and little marks about where the AI is going to advance and retreat and do all of those things. But there's also these extra holding boxes for the Soviet cards so that you've got those handy whilst you have your own little display off map. Other than that, you have your little condensed terrain effects chart, same kind of game turn summary over here. And this is a game of Soviet victory points. I think they're the only ones who score victory points in this game. Then the last map that we have, let me turn it around a similar way so that we're looking at it the same reference, is... This is the Soviet solo map. So that's the same orientation geographically speaking. However, this one it's printed this way round because you're the Soviets marching this way basically. And again, you have all of these different arrows so if they're going into this area, it dictates paths, preferred paths that they're going to be following where possible, is my understanding of it as well. So you do get, and that's why, again, of all the games where you claim, oh, it's 3 maps, 3 games in one, they at least give you unique, totally different maps, totally different rule books, and it at least feels like you're not getting hosed, which there are some companies where they're like, oh, it's 3 games in one. Yeah, it's not. I will defend this though, because this is, at least you're getting, it's not 3 games on one map. You're getting different printed sheet maps, which are all entirely unique because they have to be, because the AIs are designed ground up to be very, very different. So we have our German commands, our Soviet enemy commands, our German player commands. So if you're playing against the German AI, this is the cards that are going to fuel what they do, and it has different formations that are going to activate, and the different things that they're going to do, and then some combat tactics they're going to employ for that turn, I would presume. Same thing for the Soviet enemy ones, very similar, just obviously different nationality, and your player cards will follow a similar type of thing. However, I don't think they have quite the level of constricting detail of things that you have to do. although it is, you know, formation activations nonetheless. The other deck of cards, very, very similar. If I could get it open. Do these have a little bit on it to open it with? Or am I a moron? I'm a moron, but we all know that. That's not a surprise to anyone. Here we go. One of these days, I will cut these open before I turn the camera on. But today is not that day. Soviet player cards. Very similar to the German player commands. But then we have the German actions. German actions. German enemy commands. And is that all we've got? Oh, these are Ardennes replacements. I don't know what I was thinking of. That's nice. Those are errata ones, or extra ones for Ardennes. I didn't know that. So these German actions are, I guess, extra actions that they can take during the game. So that's interesting, because I did not see the Soviets have anything like that. And I don't know if that's just a unique part of this game, but that's very interesting and very asymmetric. So, anyway, the contents of this game are huge. That is a lot of paper. You are not supposed to tackle this all at once. You will learn one of these games at a time. So, enemy action Kharkov. This is a lot of hex encounter war game in a box. You will be fighting the same battle, but you will be fighting against entirely different enemy with entirely different kind of tactics and strategies that they employ. But that's enemy action Kharkov from Compass Games. Check this out if you're interested. We will play this. We'll definitely play it probably 2-player, and then we'll definitely play it individually solo as well. And we'll let you know how that is. It's probably a ways off. But appreciate you very much for tuning in. I've been Alexander from theplayersaid.com.